I'm recording this video with permission from Scholastic. So today we're going to be reading chapter 8 of Frindle. I want you guys to think back to the last chapter that we just read in the past video and think about what went down. So Nick was, he put his plan in action and he decided to start using the word Frindle to describe a pen, and he decided to try that out in Miss Granger's class, and it didn't go super well. He and his friends were all in on it and tried to start using the new word in class, and he knew that it would bother Miss Granger, and it did. And so we're going to see what happens. She made it very clear at the end of the chapter that this should not happen again in this class. This is disruptive. This is distracting. And Nick kind of had the last word, and he said, "And I promise I won't ever forget my Frindle again." So he's not really listening to what she's saying. And so I want you guys to just listen carefully and see what happens next. So this chapter is called Mightier Than the Sword. 2 days later, the photographer came to take class pictures. The 5th grade picture would be taken last, right after lunch. That gave Nick and his secret agents plenty of time, and they whispered something into the ear of every 5th grader. And all the individual pictures that had been taken, and finally it was time for the group picture. Everyone was lined up on the auditorium stage. Everyone's hair looked great and everyone was smiling. But when the photographer said, "Say cheese," no one did. Instead, every kid said, "Frindle," and they held one up for the camera to see. The photographer was out of film. Film is how they used to shoot photos before, so we don't have that now, but when you used to take class photos, you needed film in order to take them, instead of just taking it on your phone or something. So that shot was the only 5th grade group picture he took. 6 of the 5th grade's teachers were not pleased, and Miss Granger was furious. No one had really wanted to make the teachers mad. It was just fun. It also got all the kids in school talking about the new word. And when people pick up a new word, they say it all the time. The kids at Lincoln Elementary School liked Nick's new word a lot, but not Miss Granger. The day after class pictures, she made an announcement to each of her classes, and she posted a notice on the main bulletin board by the office. Anyone who is heard using the word Frindle instead of the word pen will stay after school and write this sentence 100 times. I am writing this punishment with a pen, Miss Granger. But that just made everyone want to use Nick's word even more. Staying after school with the lone Granger became a badge of honor. There were kids in the classroom every day after school. It went on like that for a couple weeks. One day near the end of 7th period, Miss Granger asked Nick to come talk to her after school. "This is not detention, Nicholas. I just want to talk." Nick was excited. It was kind of like a conference during a war. One side waves a white flag and the generals come out and talk. General Nicholas Allen. Nick liked the sound of that. He stuck his head in Miss Granger's doorway after school. "You wanted to talk to me?" "Yes, Nicholas. Please come in and sit down." When he was settled, she looked at him and said, "Don't you think this Frindle business has gone far enough? It's just a disruption to the school, don't you think?" Nick swallowed hard, but he said, "I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just fun. And it really is a real word. It's not a bad word, just different. And besides, it's how words really change, isn't it? That's what you said." Miss Granger sighed. "Oh, it is how a word could be made up brand new, I suppose. But the word pen, should it really be replaced by that other word?" "The word pen has a long, rich history. It comes from the Latin word feather, penna. It started to become our word pen because quills made from feathers were the first writing tools ever made. It's a word that comes from somewhere. It makes sense, Nicholas." "But Frindle makes just as much sense to me," said Nick. "And after all, didn't somebody just make up the word penna too?" That got a smirk from Miss Granger's eyes, but all she said was, "Then you are not going to stop this?" And Nick looked right at her eyes and said, "Well, a bunch of friends and I took an oath about using the word, and we have to keep our promise. And besides, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I like my word." Nick tried to look brave, just like a general would. "Very well then. I thought it would end up this way. Miss Granger pulled a fat white envelope from her desk and held it up. This is a letter I have written to you, Nicholas. Nick held out his hand, thinking she was going to give it to him, but she didn't. I am not going to send it to you until all of this is over. I want you to sign your name and put today's date on the back of the envelope. When you read it, whenever that may be, you will know it is the same letter and that I have not made any changes to it. This is weird, Nick said to himself. But to Miss Granger he said, sure, and he signed his name in his best cursive and put the date under it. Here's a picture of Nick and Miss Granger. She's handing him the white envelope. Then Miss Granger stood up abruptly and said, then that is all for today, Nicholas, and may the best word win. There was a frown on her face, but with her eyes were different, almost happy. And Nick was halfway down the hall before it hit him. She likes this war, and she wants to win real bad. Walking to school the next day, Pete had a great idea. How about if we see if we can get every kid in the whole 5th grade to go up and ask Miss Granger, can I borrow a Frindle? You mean, Miss Granger, may I borrow a Frindle? Said Dave. Gotta use good grammar. Don't want to upset dangerous Grangerous. Sounds good to me, said Nick. She can't keep everyone after school, can she? Almost 80 kids stayed after school with Miss Granger that day. They filled her room and spilled out into the hallway. The principal had to stay late to help, and they had to arrange 2 special late buses to get all of the kids home. And the next day, all the 5th graders did it again, and so did a lot of other students, over 200 kids. Parents called to complain. The school bus drivers threatened to go on strike, and then the school board and the superintendent got involved. And about this time, the principal of Lincoln Elementary School paid a little visit to the home of Mr. and Mrs. Allen. She wanted to talk to them about their son, the one in the 5th grade, the one named Nick. So, yeah, this action-packed chapter. We see Nick putting his word into action, and it doesn't seem like he's backing down. I want you to notice the character progression with Miss Granger. At the beginning of this chapter, we saw Miss Granger very stern and strict, and she still is, but I want you to stop and think, what do you notice that's different about Miss Granger in this chapter? What do you notice about the way that she's acting and the way that she's talking to Nick? What do you notice? I think that there's a little bit of a change in her character development. So I want you to pause, think about that. So after you've taken a pause, I want you to think back to where you see Miss Granger's character start changing in the book. I think it's really interesting. At the beginning, she was very, very stern and very strict, and she still is strict. But Miss Granger is kind of buying into Nick's game a little bit. She said, may the best word win. She isn't just expelling them or getting furious. She's holding them after school. She's not letting Nick win this game, and she's kind of playing along. And so I think it's really interesting. Can you imagine if 200 kids stayed after school? Oh my goodness, that would be insane. And so that is what even just something simple as Nick using the word Frindle instead of pen is impacting his school. So it's just really crazy. So I want you to think about, where do you think the story is going to go from here? We notice Miss Granger is kind of playing into this game a little bit. We notice that she's not backing down, and neither is Nick. But something has to happen. You can't just hold the kids after school every day for the rest of the book. We got a decent amount of this book to go. So I want you to make a prediction, and then when you come back to the next video tomorrow, I want you to see if your prediction was right. Bye, guys.